Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to the 453rd Imagine Greater Buffalo program and another virtual Imagine lecture series. I believe this is number 74, hosted by the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature. And this is ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, every Tuesday, there's a theme. The third Tuesday of the month is history. We look back so we can better understand how to look forward and imagine the whole idea of the Imagine program. We're going to start with our speaker shortly, but first, a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted during our speaker's presentation. If you do have a question, please type it into the chat box and we will get to as many as we can. This program is being recorded. You'll be able to watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels, and we hope you share the link with your friends and networks. Now to our featured speaker, Melissa Brown. Melissa is the Executive Director of the Buffalo History Museum. Is an entrepreneurial leader seizing her passion for and expertise in material culture to create emotional connections. She believes time spent experiencing history contributes to overall well-being. That's a good connection. From collection storage to front of house, Melissa has served in many roles. She became the museum's 11th director in 2011. Inspiring transformational change, including a rebrand from the Buffalo and Erie County Historical Society to the Buffalo History Museum, leading to a more welcoming community center. Melissa received her Master of Arts in Historical Administration from Eastern Illinois University in 2000, adding to her 1995 Bachelor of Arts in American History and Museum Studies minor from SUNY Oswego. Now, let's welcome Melissa Brown, who will discuss Erie County, New York, 1821 to 2021. Melissa, take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm just going to bring up my slides here. Bear with me here. I think I should be good here now.
Are you? Good. All right.
Yeah, I think
All right.
so. This is what happens, Dennis, when I try to administer technology. I see Tony joined too. I was trying to put a video of our augmented reality in, and it looks like it's freezing my screen. So I deleted that slide. I should be good now. And I'm going to try to just kind of skip through some of this because we lost a little time there. So I apologize. And I do appreciate Dennis's invitation to present again at Imagine. I was saying to him, this is my first one virtually. I do better live apparently when I go to my technical difficulties, but I do appreciate the honor. And I wanted to start first by saying that the museum was very busy. During the period of the pandemic, we had actually started working on a master plan, and we were really about halfway through that process 2 years ago when the pandemic started, and we were able to not only finish the master plan, but also really have it be informed by the experience. I'm very glad that we weren't through that process by the time the pandemic started, just because it afforded the opportunity to have the experience shaping the plan in real time. And our mission, which is a bit of a departure from when I started working at the museum. I have been here in different capacities since 1998, as Dennis mentioned, and we moved in the direction with our strategic plan to have a mission that's more about the relationship with our guests and the idea of experiencing history with you. And Dennis, I love that you always are advocating for lifelong learning. And at the History Museum, that's really, like I said, what I believe. I believe that our lives are enriched by experiencing history and having that be part of who we are and understanding better our community. So this is our current mission statement. Yep. And then
Melissa,
these,
I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks,
yes.
what I'm seeing is still, it looks like a frozen screen from your slideshow.
Okay. So I was talking about the mission, and then these are our goals from our master plan. And so each of these, you know, from really affording access to the collection to those partnerships that are so important to establishing an impact in the community. These goals are feeding our work, and the master plan really does provide a roadmap for the next 10 years for the museum. And what I'm really excited to share with all of you, and many of you I know have taken advantage of coming in to see it already, is the restoration of our portico. So while, you know, we were having downtime a bit from the pandemic, it actually worked out perfectly for our construction timing. We had planned on doing the renovation of the portico. This is what the portico looked like. And Leah, we're good now. You can see that.
Yes, we're all good.
Okay, perfect. This is what the portico looked like. This space, especially as you go underneath the portico, really, if you could visualize where Lincoln is, it was not at all climate controlled. There was water issues, and we were able to renovate that and really improve the guest amenities in the second phase of our project, which happened largely while the pandemic was happening. So I'm really proud. This is actually our Red Jacket event, which was one of the debut experiences down in that space. So there are brand new fully accessible restrooms. The gallery is a wonderful new space that we can use in concert in one full space and also divide for different community collaborations, but it's really wonderful to have that activated. So Dennis and I, as he had mentioned, have been working on EC 200, which is really honoring the bicentennial of Erie County. And in our committee, so including, I see some people on this call, Ann Conable and Kathy Leacock, there are over 100 partners, heritage-based organizations that have come on board to really make people aware of the history and the heritage that's in our own backyard and that characterizes our community. Here's the link to our website. And also, there are QR codes within that website that take you to events in particular, like you'll see the Visit Buffalo Niagara logo. They've been an instrumental partner in providing a community-wide calendar. So if you use Visit Buffalo Niagara's calendar, you will be able to access all the different events that are happening with our partners across the area. Now we're winding down in terms of the timing for the official period of the commemoration, which was April 2021 through till April 2022. But we have really, with our partners, gained a lot of momentum, and there are certainly experiences that extend beyond. And the county, through the county executive, was very committed to this commemoration and supported financially with some of the relief funds celebrations to happen throughout the community. The county executive had also made a commitment to the History Museum to position us to renovate the significant space that many of you might remember as the Neighbors exhibit upstairs in the museum. So Continuum, which is our legacy contribution to bicentennial, opened in late October. Of course, with the way the pandemic was progressing at that point, you know, many of you may not have been out yet to see it. So I'm hoping today to give you a glimpse of what to expect in the exhibit and also entice you to come out and explore it yourself. But this was a significant, it was a $500,000 investment from the county, as well as several private donors that contributed to our augmented reality experience, which was part of my technical difficulty of trying to screen that with you. This is actually an opening, and you can see kind of the opening area of the exhibit. In the foreground is our 1901 Pierce motorette. And that, as you see these details of the rail, those are county histories that our county historian, I would say, passionately devotedly, aggressively sought out from each of our communities within Erie County. And Doug Kohler, who really co-curated and wrote the exhibit with Anthony Greco, who is our director of exhibits and interpretive planning here at the museum. He did a lot to chase these down. So there is a brief history of each of the townships and areas and some of the change over time for the different communities that make up Erie County. But we go all the way back. So for us, we typically haven't gone to the geological history of the area, but Continuum does that. So we go all the way back to really what poised the area for human settlement, and starting with indigenous peoples that had located here, and then go all the way through to the pandemic. So we span beyond the 200 years that is commemorated with the official bicentennial of Erie County. But certainly this is all history that feeds into who we are and how our region really it has evolved to be what it is today. We also start with a land acknowledgement to the Seneca, and that is something that we've been really working towards at the History Museum, and acknowledging that history and showing how, you know, that is a community that we have an active relationship with, and that was a very important part of the approach with this exhibit, to not just talk about Erie County starting with the marking of, you know, the lines and the official, you know, governmental formation, but really how we've evolved, you know, across the continuum of time, and that's really what inspired the title. Many of you will remember the dark grain elevator here on the left side of, or I'm sorry, the right side of the image. And then Dennis was referring to the bird's eye view. These are really favorites, and Tony likes to call them the ruby slippers of our collection, like the ruby slippers of Dorothy that are so known and held in the Smithsonian's collection. These are artifacts that people know are in the collection, and they come and visit and look for. The DART elevator was actually made by staff members here at the museum, probably in the 1940s, to replicate what the elevator looked like in Buffalo. And of course, you know, it's such an instrumental history. We brought the elevator to life as with several other artifacts with this augmented reality component of the exhibit, which I'm sorry, I cannot demonstrate. I don't want to send this into a crash again. So you'll just have to come to the museum and check it out for yourself. But the augmented reality, for those of you who are not is familiar with it, basically using your own personal device and downloading an app or a tablet here at your museum, you can you know, basically tap into another dimension of the artifact. It really brings the story to life. A lot of people will look at the elevator and not really understand contextually, how did it work? How did it transform life? And so the app helps try to bring more of that story out and really make it more experiential. Here's another view. That's our portrait of Mary Talbert there in the back on the left side. And so this is the section that's really at the turn of the century. The McKinley assassination weapon, the Ivor Johnson revolver is in this case. In the foreground is, again, another one of the ruby slippers of the collection. So many of them here are, and that's Dominic Coco's hurdy-gurdy. He was a known fixture here in the area, and many people, you know, had personal experiences with him and remember him and have shared those stories. So that's just another view. And here in a later section of the exhibit, I wanted to point this out. We actually had Patricia and Richard Fors from their estate donated money to conserve this piece that you see really dominantly in this view of the Continuum exhibit. That's the Cornell Aeronautic Lab, and really the wind tunnel. You can see in the back part of that rendering. This is a huge, about 10 foot by 5 foot tall piece that was in poor condition, partly because of how it was made. So it was sent out to Williamstown for conservation. It was about a $30,000 proposition to restore it and bring it to a stabilized condition for viewing and to incorporate it into the exhibit. So we're very, very pleased by their generosity and the ability for us to feature this amazing piece within the exhibit. And here's that, as you round out the exhibit, really coming to current, there are pieces towards the end of the exhibit that talk about the pandemic. You can see those tiles that are at the top of the image there towards the back. Those are actually solar tiles from Tesla. They're in the collection. So we sought those out several years ago we're always collecting. That's one of the one of the challenges of the History Museum. We don't just collect the things that happened a long time ago, but we have a responsibility to continue to document our story going forward. And so this last part of the exhibit kind of brings the story to current and where we are at today. I wanted to also feature outside of Continuum and the EC200, which we've been so actively engaged in. And as I mentioned, that will be rounding out this month. We also have some exhibits that I wanted to make you aware of up and coming. We're going to be featuring in collaboration with the Seneca Iroquois National Museum, the work of Marie Watt. We were really fortunate to acquire one of her pieces at the newly opened K-Art Gallery in their debut show. And that acquisition led to a conversation with the artist about wanting to host one of her shows here at the museum, which led to a conversation more broadly, partly with our relationship with Dr. Joe Stallman at Seneca Iroquois National Museum, to really expand on that. So this exhibit will debut in late May, May 20th, and we'll be featuring Marie's work. We also will, in tandem with that exhibit, we'll also be hosting Stitch Buffalo here. They were able to get a grant to feature some of their artists, and we are delighted that they needed a space, and we were delighted that we were able to accommodate them during that same time. There'll be a great synergy with their work and the work of Marie Watt. Also upcoming for the Pan Am enthusiasts in the crowd, of which I am one, to rescue the color salvage renderings of the Rainbow City will also open. Well, it'll probably open sooner than that, but it'll be featured at that time. And these are about, I think there's 8 of them in total, renderings. It's hard for you to even understand the scale of these when you're looking at them on the screen, but each of these is about between 3 foot wide by 4 foot tall, or even larger. These are renderings that were used by the artists in C.Y. Turner's studio. It's hard to imagine that for an event that lasted for 6 months, and that was their intention, the detail that they went to. And C.Y. Turner, who was the director of color at the Pan American Exposition, he worked with a whole team of artists and essentially created these studies to apply the color and understand how they were going to actually execute it in 3-dimensional form. And these were salvaged, as the title indicates, by one of the artists on the team, and an influential American artist at that, Carl Hirschberg. And he wrote this letter to the History Museum, actually that I found back in 2012 when we were working on our 150th anniversary. And he talked about these renderings, and I knew that the renderings were in the collection and we were trying to conserve them. And so over the last 10 years, we've spent about $13,000 annually, year by year, conserving each one of these to prepare for this exhibit, obviously because they were not meant to last or go beyond the Pan Am. They needed a lot of work, and given their size, they were a lot to tackle. But fortunately, our Gardner Fund allows us to do proactive conservation from the collection. And so we're delighted to be able to share these renderings really for the first time since 1901. And I think for the Pan Am enthusiasts, you will not want to miss this show. Also for our Wednesday night programs, and particularly now is the time to come. So if you haven't checked out Continuum, from March 2nd to April 2nd is EC200 Redemption Days. What is that? Well, we worked on a passport project that was probably one of the signature projects from the bicentennial. The passport circulated over 4,000 of them through our partners at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library, through our partners in the heritage-based organizations, for people to participate, to go out and check out these resources in our backyard, but also to participate in EC200 events. And so now is the time, if you did any of those things, or if you check out Continuum, the coin that's featured here in the slide is available to you to pick up at the museum. So that's what redemption is. You come in and, you know, show us your passport and redeem a coin, or if you participated in any of the bicentennial events, the coins are available while they last. So that runs from March 2nd to April 2nd. I really encourage you, if you're going to do that, to come on a Wednesday. Museum's open till 8. So you can come by, check out Continuum, redeem your coin, but then you can also stay and enjoy one of these programs. And on Wednesdays and on Saturdays through till April 2nd, our heritage-based partners for EC200 will be tabling at the museum. So they'll be talking about their missions and what they do in the community, and opportunities to enjoy, you know, the history that they have in their collections. Last week, it was More and More and Black Rock Historical. I can't remember who's confirmed for tomorrow night, but there are at least 2 organizations for each Wednesday and each Saturday at the museum. And there's details about that if you follow the link at the bottom on our website. But tomorrow night will be Kelly Hayes McAloney talking about Louise Bethune, who has an amazing story here in Buffalo. And Kelly is wildly passionate about Louise, and arguably is the person who's elevated her story to where it is now. And many of us will know her from her masterpiece, which you know, we regard as the Hotel Lafayette now, that is also, you know, has been restored. And then there's a couple other programs that are up and coming, but details on all of these are available following that link on our website. And a new opportunity, if you haven't checked it out, and Dennis, I believe Jesse and Mark were just on the Imagine series, I think maybe last year.
Yes.
Before. The Lens exhibit that is up right now in collaboration with the History Museum, the Albright Knox Art Gallery, the Richardson Olmsted Complex, and most importantly, Preservation of Buffalo Niagara, and really Jesse Fisher just went above and beyond to bring this exhibit experience together. It's being featured over at the Richardson. You can go see it Thursday through Sunday. And then there's a special program series that's going to be happening at the History Museum on Thursday nights. So we have stuff on Wednesday nights, but through the end of March and the first week of April, we'll also be hosting the Lenses speaker series. So coming up this week, you know, you will not want to miss the program with Keisha Patterson. That's Thursday night, about artistic activism in the built environment. And then you can see there are several others. And then I have to give a plug, of course, to our podcast. If you have not tuned into that, many of these stories and many of the stories of Continuum are explored more deeply in the podcast. It's a great format. This is also produced by our director of exhibits and interpretive planning, Anthony Greco, and you know, our podcast actually won the Spree Best Of. I'm very, very excited and proud by that, because that's, you know, a community vote. And if you tune in and listen to them, you will not be disappointed. And here's a link. They're available really, if you Google it, really any platform. If you're an Apple person, you can download them on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, really any of the platforms that work for you. Here's the Podbean link. But they're really, if you just Google it, it's probably the best way depending on what your platform is. So that is the end of my formal remarks. And I am happy to field questions.
Melissa, that was great. We thank you very much for doing that summary. And again, our apologies for the slight delay at the beginning. But those were great images to look at while we were waiting of your new exhibit.
They were flashing by very quickly, and that's on my end. That is not on the Imagine end of things, but yes. So
no, well, and I'm saying even when we were having difficulties at the beginning, to see that bird's eye view of Buffalo in the distance and the Dart grain elevator from 1842, and I didn't realize that was made in the 1940s by dedicated folks that are supporters. While we're waiting for some questions to come in to Leah, you're in a programming format, obviously. We're all in this digital age that allows for podcasts. Are you going to be recording those? Will they be any combination of live and virtual, or will there be an archive of these programs that people can eventually go to, because they're important subjects that you're covering, and not everybody gets to go live? What's your status?
Well, Dennis, we have had a lot of learnings during the pandemic, as have all of us. And I have to say that as a history museum, we actually were not in the practice of recording and archiving our programs, partly because there was a separate list of hiring a photographer and making sure that we had all those connections. But since the pandemic and really that shift to online programming, we learned a lot. And we now, I'm very proud to say, during the pandemic, have archived all of our programs that we provided that were completely online. And we realized, just because obviously a lot of us want to get back out and see each other, that's one thing, but we have found that there's been a huge audience of people who, like you're mentioning, Dennis, for one reason or another, can't get to the museum. And sometimes it's just, I don't have the time to make the drive out, but I could log on. So we're doing the hybrid now for our programs in the evening. And I should mention, and I did not mention this in my anxiety about the slideshow, we are pay-as-you-wish admission right now, and we have been. So the entire period after we reopened from the pandemic, we reopened for free, partly because the construction was going on and we knew the visitor experience was compromised. But then we also, a big component of our master plan is access. And so we have prioritized providing the experience as a pay-as-you-wish experience and have continued that into 2022. So coming to the museum now, you decide what you want to pay, and that's the way it is for our programs as well. So we've been really, I think, to answer your question, Dennis, we've been experimenting a bit. Right now, we're doing the programs, we're streaming them via Facebook Live as the Wednesday night program is happening. And then it gets archived to our YouTube page. Perfect. We might be shifting over to Zoom to have better audio controls. And I noticed this week, I was at the program live, but I noticed the speaker moved around a lot. So Patrick had to keep moving the camera. So, these are some of the things that we're trying to work through, because we are filming a live experience, but we're trying to create a positive experience for people who are viewing it remotely as well. So we're still working through some kinks. But you and I were just commenting on how great this is now, because you have the visuals recorded, whereas I know for all of these, what did you say, 453 talks, you recorded that audio. So I mean, it's amazing the record that you've created, and now I'm proud to say that we're adding to that too, as we should be as a history museum. So
that's good news. That's good news. Leah, how are we doing for any questions?
We do have a kind of two-part question that I can read. They're wondering if your master plan looks at how potential changes to the corridor might provide opportunities for the History Museum, such as improving the surroundings in view and reintegrating the museum with the rest of the cultural district south of the creek. And then what can you tell us about your own vision for changes to the Scajaquada corridor?
Sure. So the museum, as we all know, talk about history, the Scajaquada corridor has a lot of history, and there's been a lot of different elements of that, still evolving story. And so we participate in groups that are meeting through the Olmsted Parks. We also, I'm happy to say that since the pandemic, the several other leaders of the culturals that receive significant funding from the county have met for many, many years. But since the pandemic, we moved to first weekly and then bi-weekly meetings. So we're often talking, and that includes the Albright Knox Art Gallery, the Birchfield Penny, Olmsted Parks, right in our immediate proximity, and of course, all around the Scajaquada corridor. So we're trying to stay apprised of the developments, but I think that's one big element of our master plan that's already been accomplished was reconnecting to the park. For over a generation, the back side of the museum was closed off to the park, literally walled up. The windows were boarded up. That was that portico chamber that we were looking at in the slideshow. And so that has been accomplished. We've reopened those doors and windows. We are physically, able to go in from that lake level entry space of the museum. You don't have to navigate up the stairs of the portico to get into the museum. And I'm thrilled this year with an in-person Cherry Blossom Festival that it'll be the first season that even if Mother Nature does not cooperate for Cherry Blossom Festival, we will be able to accommodate indoors, outdoors, and take it all in person. But that, that tied directly into reconnecting and reclaiming that space. I know specifically with some of the developments, and particularly with the DOT, that they were trying to put pedestrians onto the Scajaquada, even a year and a half ago, with making some of those changes. And both the History Museum and the Albright were very vocal about the fact that we did not think we were anywhere near ready for that with just what had been done and what they thought were the traffic calming measures. So, I think we're staying engaged in the conversation. In terms of, my own vision, I think the organizations that are within, and if we're talking about the corridor in terms of kind of this North Elmwood corridor around the park. I mean, there are lots of corridors when you think about all the way reaching to the Science Museum and some of the implications for the Humboldt section of our really following our original parks plan. I think we're doing a lot of work and having a lot of conversations, which are really healthy. But of course, there's a lot of factors that play in terms of, where the state is involved or where, some of it is a government roadway. So, I think it's just making sure we're fostering the communication and having those conversations and participating. And that's a big part of our master plan, being out in the community and that community engagement component.
It's an important question. Any others, Leah?
Nope, those are the only questions.
Okay, good. Melissa, actually, we're slightly over our time allotment, so we're going to need to wrap this up. I can only reinforce what you said. That exhibit that you created is clean and crisp and really literally goes back to the geology and indigenous folks that were here long before European settlers, and includes that story so that you get a context for the times we're living in and the importance of having some glimpse of that history. Well, I guess that's what a Buffalo History Museum should be doing. And I also want to reinforce the podcast. Anthony Greco does a great storytelling addition in these digital products, basically, whether it's content of programs that you're doing or the podcast history story. It's a new dimension, but it's where future generations seem to be living and spending a lot of their time, and we better accommodate that.
It's how I get my activity in. I have to listen to a podcast, so it's like a reinforcement of walking at night in the cold temperatures. I walk and I listen to podcasts, including ours, which is very good. And I thank you, Dennis, for that acknowledgement, and also your kind words about Continuum. We're really proud of it. And we've now overhauled over 80% of the museum space in really the last 5 years. So if you are a person who's like, oh, I've been to the History Museum, if you have not been here recently, you've not been to the History Museum, you need to come and check it out. And we really did work on Continuum in a way that also engaged the community and gaining community insight to sharing the story and sourcing that as well, which I did not mention as part of Tony's process and working with Doug, but really trying to go to people and engage different perspectives in that exhibit. So I do hope you come out, redeem your coin for the bicentennial. They're beautiful, and thanks again, Dennis, for inviting me today.
Melissa, you're welcome. And you're really part one of a two-part program. April 19th, we'll have the Erie County historian, Doug Kohler, on the Imagine program. And the county executive office has said he'll be joining that program as well to receive the acknowledgement. Once a year, we acknowledge always a person, but for the first time, in this case, the organizing committee for EC 200. It's a year-long program. I hope it sets the stage that we can make these big events. We've got Erie Canal 200th anniversary coming up, and make them into larger than a day or a weekend, months, and maybe a year-long program to help focus on particular subjects. Keeps the activity coming in under normal times, pre and post COVID, Melissa, to a building like yours, so that people don't say, well, I've been there. There's always something fresh and new happening with these speaker programs that you've got. So yeah, folks, make it a point to stop by. You won't be disappointed, and you'll be most pleasantly surprised by the work done in the last 5 years to rearrange exhibits. I think the previous one was up there for over 40 years, if I'm not mistaken.
It might as well, but it was about 30 for Neighbors and 20 for, over 20 for Buffalo Made that was replaced by Icons, which is the sports exhibit. With March Madness this week, it's a perfect time to come see the Braves case. We have a feature case about the Braves and remembering some of that history within Icons. We'll have a lot of guests this week. It's a perfect storm of St. Patrick's Day, 60-degree temperatures, and March Madness all happening at one time.
Well, a lot of folks, whether it's Explore Buffalo, going on tours, you reach a certain point and you say, hey, I'm interested in my backyard, place-based lifelong learning. And there's more and more of that. And you're certainly a reason, Melissa, with your work at the Buffalo History Museum, why that's happening. Okay, folks, we're going to move on. We thank you for your welcome. We thank you for being here today. Next week, a team of Fareed Cook, who is the co-curator of the exhibit that is currently at Northland, and it's along with Aaron Ott, who's the curator of public art, so that I will encourage you to come back next week, and we will be having it another Imagine program. Folks, thanks for participating, making the series enjoyable to present because you show up. So thank you. I'm Dennis Galecki. Be well and good day.